I tried piecing together the most helpful render tips I could find. I know you guys are tired of common generic advice out there, so yeah. Maybe take this as a render tutorial part 2, but 5 times better anyways? Like, trust me, that video did not deserve 200k views. With every great render, there comes the planning stage. But Aka, this isn't rendering, this is drawing. I thought you were gonna teach us how to render. I don't wanna learn— Nuh-uh. Shut up. While yes, this isn't rendering, one of the ways to improve in art is to prepare for war. Am I comparing rendering to the unrelenting brutalities of war? Yes. Yes, I am. I mean, wouldn't you agree? I mean, let's put it this way. If I were to throw you into a battlefield empty-handed, with no clue what you're doing whatsoever, would you survive? No, you wouldn't. If you said yes, then you're clearly lying to yourself. Unless you're this person on TikTok, okay? I don't know how she does it. There are mainly 2 ways I like to plan things out, and I'll show you. The first way I like to do things is make a bunch of mood boards. If you're like me, you've got a sea of chaos running through your head at all times, and I mean at all times. And it's pretty hard to sort your thoughts out, especially if you're going into a full-on render. So I like to use Milanote to Frankenstein all my ideas together. It's honestly one of my favorite applications, and you can also use it on PC if you want. This tool is perfect for artists like us to compile our wacky ideas into one big specialized board. I like scrolling on Pinterest or Google for references, but sometimes I just need something to organize all of these different sources into one big awesome page. You can literally do so much here. You can add silly arrows, pictures, text, and feel like a little detective while planning all of these things out. And I really like I can make a direct link to the original website, so you can always go back and check out the original artist for yourself. Really great, because I know how we artists love our credit, and giving credit is very important, guys. This is the mood board I made for a specific render. Yes, Jinx, our beloved angsty queen. Also dead. I like to use these notes to keep track of what I like about each and every piece, and the color codes really help me figure out what kind of color palettes I'd like. And you can even doodle on your boards. Like, isn't that fun? Make a few notes here and there. There's also a checklist, and now I have a clear idea for this render. I'm really liking the concept of the reflection here on this reference. Like, maybe we could play around with mirrors and glass cracking, and maybe her hair flowing down. Like, that sounds really cool. I've actually used Milanote for quite some time now, and in fact, I've used it to make these few other illustrations you see on the screen. They also offer various templates for you, and they still look really awesome. Like, look at this one. And I used this specific template to draft out my animatic. And if you're a big writer like I am, I love making characters and OCs, and making mood boards is also a way for me to understand them and look at them. Aren't they so cool? Honestly, Milanote is just perfect for every creative person on this planet, and you can also invite people to your board so you can collaborate and make something cool together. And it's free, so definitely go check it out with the link in the description or in the pinned comment. Also, if you do end up getting Milanote, please send me your mood boards. I'd love to see them. Oh my gosh, I love mood boards. Maybe send them on my Discord, or maybe just tell me your opinions on mood boards in the comments below. Moving on. After creating our wonderful mood board, I have a better idea of the composition I want. Now it's time to move on to the second step, which is thumbnail sketching. Imagine a perfect way to render out without even rendering in the first place. That's thumbnail sketching. Pretty much you're just making small little models of your soon-to-be rendered piece. This way you'll waste less time making the mistakes later on. You can literally experiment all you want. Colors, composition, poses, all within a small little square. You can see me here experimenting with different compositions and color combos, and just have fun with this process. I think this is great. Planning is fun, guys. Planning is fun. You just have to do it right, guys. And I ended up picking this one. Very cool. And now we can finally start What? Oh, right. I almost forgot. Canvas sizes. After planning and sketching things down, it's finally time to choose your canvas size. And guys, Your canvas size makes all the difference. There's definitely a quality difference between using big and small canvas sizes, especially if you're posting it on social media, Instagram included. If you're looking for the general sweet spot, I'd usually go for a canvas size of this on the screen. And if your canvas size is anywhere near the 3 digits range, prepare to see pixels, alright? Okay, now we can finally start drawing, or sketching in that case. After I finish my sketch, I make sure to fill in the base colors first. Be free to play with blending modes, adjustment layers, hues, and I like to set down my base colors so I know what I'm working with, so I know if colors look good or not. And once you're satisfied with the colors, we can move on to rendering. Yes, we're finally here. Rendering! That's what you guys came here for. You guys deserve a gold star for making it this far. I know, you guys are used to watching your reels and shorts. Your attention spans are skewed. I know my audience. So comment gold star so that I know you're a real one. After chipping in your base colors, it's very important to know where your lights and darks are going. For my case, the light source is coming from the mirror. And since Jinx is looking towards the mirror, her whole face will be lit up. And her backside of the hair won't be hit by the light, so therefore it's gonna be a bit darker on those areas. And you've also got to keep track of those little tiny crevices in the hair. They're always pretty dark. Right now, we're only putting down the basic shapes, simple shapes. We're not overcomplicating the shadows, only basic shapes. And now we get this. Now, I want you to pay close attention to everything I'm saying right now. This might change your life. Now, whenever I see people shade things in, they usually do the following. They have their base color, select a gray color, add a multiply layer on top, boom, shading. But what I like to do instead of that is I swatch my base color, I shift the hue slightly towards like a pink or a blue, and then I like to make it a bit darker, and then I'd like to shift the saturation. And you can already see the difference here. One is a bit less saturated and dull. One is more vibrant. And of course, this is all preference based. I like to use vibrant colors, so it's just my thing. And if you're not into that, it's fine. You don't have to follow every single thing I do. Now, to break down how I exactly render things out, I'd like to take a look at all of my previous illustrations. So let's break it down. The trick is to add shadows to your shadows. Bear with me now. If you were to try and break down the colors of this piece, you'll find out that most of the shades are all in shadow. This is a shadow and this is a shadow of the shadow. It's just a bit darker and they all vary in value. And notice how these shadows are intentionally layered on top of one another. If you were to take this clump of hair and isolate it, you'll find that the shade and highlight is conveniently placed where it defines the form, making it look almost three-dimensional. And this is why you need to understand how three-dimensional planes work. So I heavily advise most of you to practice shading in spheres, cubes, all the three-dimensional shapes out there. That way you can better understand how to place these shadows. I feel like it's way better if I explain it while I do the things, so let's do that. So let's just start off with a simple sphere. Now we have this little sphere. It's looking like a circle at the moment because we haven't added the shadows and all of that, but we'll soon get to that. So right now we have this main light source coming from this direction over here, and that means this entire sphere is lit up and this entire area is in the dark. So let's quickly add our shadows, and we're gonna use the same concept we learned before. We're gonna swatch the base color, shift the hue, maybe towards a nice blue, yes, and then we're gonna shift the saturation, make it a little bit darker, yeah. And then we're gonna shade it in. It's looking great, but it's still looking a little flat. So what I like to do after this is add a transition color. And this is pretty much an in-between of the base color and the shadow. So we're gonna try and swatch a color that's in between those colors. So let's pick out the shadow, and then let's shift the hue towards the pink, and then we'll make it a little bit lighter. And then I like to add them to the sides of the shadow like this. And this is a stylistic choice, but I like to add these feathery things on the side that stick out. It's just a stylistic choice, it doesn't make sense, but it just looks cool. Now look at how much of a difference it makes by just adding one transition color. Amazing. It's like magic, guys. Amazing. Now we can add like maybe a highlight on the top since the light is hitting that area. Let's make it a light pink this time, a really nice hot pink. I think that works. Again, I'm adding these feather-like things. You don't have to follow me, they don't make sense, but they just look cool, so why not? And you know what? Let's add another transition color for the highlight and the base color. Look at that! amazing. What did we learn from this, guys? Is that transition colors are goated. And another stylistic choice, I like to add this really dark color that acts as line art. It's not exactly black, it's like a dark blue. Usually I don't use pure blacks or whites, it's just not my thing. I feel like it adds the additional contrast and value it really needs to just stick out. You gotta understand that there's cause and effect for everything, and I mean everything is interacting with one another. Whether you see it or not, they're most likely affected by their surroundings, whether it be the light source or the bounce light from another object, and I'll show you with one of my pieces. Now this is a piece I made a while ago, and notice how the blue curtain is reflecting onto the girl. This is what we call bounce light. The light from the curtain was just so shiny and reflective. It bounces onto the girl's hair, skin, and even her dress. Like, look at how there's a tint of bluish tones over here. This just adds another layer of dimension. And it's not just interacting with the curtain here, it's also interacting with the light source right here. It's like a reddish tone, so that's why the side of the hair is like a red tint, while this area is a bit bluish, because here we have the light from the curtain, which is just so powerful. It's bouncing its light onto the girl, getting this nice blue. Also, unrelated, if you were to swatch the curtain, it's not actually a blue, but that's color theory's job, and that's a whole lecture for another video, okay guys? But speaking of colors now, how do we even pick colors to begin with? Now, I could explain you color theory and this video would be an hour long, but I won't. Honestly, I just see whatever colors look good, and if they look good, cool, I use them. But there are probably a few things you need to keep in mind, and if you want to learn about color theory, I have a video on that, or you can watch this other video. This is way better, honestly. But I can recommend you this website. It's very cool. You can type in any keyword, and it pops out a little cool color palette just for you. Complementary colors are also the easiest way to go about things. And these are the usual color palettes I go with, so be free to save them. Sometimes when drawings look off to me, it's probably because it lacks that defining value. In simple terms, your drawing lacks darker values. For example, when I was working on this drawing, it just didn't feel right to me. The colors were off and it just didn't feel right. And it took me a while to realize that I just needed to add darker values onto the piece. And look at that, it looks so much better. Don't expect to become a render god after this tutorial or tip video, whatever it's become. There's only so much I can tell you with one video, and honestly, the best way to improve rendering is to do your own studies. Go out there, look up your own tutorials, constantly learn from them however way you can. That's how I used to do things back in my day, and I still apply it to today. You literally already have the biggest source of information, the freaking internet. And for the heck of it, here's a few tutorials I heavily recommend you to check out. Now obviously this wouldn't be a render video if I'm not gonna show you how I render, so here we go. For this video, I'm gonna try and re-render this art piece I made a free rend. I feel like it would be an easy start for people. I like to keep things clean whenever I render, so everything is in folders as you can see here. And if you're not aware, I use the lasso tool to render everything out as you can see here. Think back to the spear we rendered a few minutes ago. We're doing the exact same thing. We're gonna place our basic shadows, swatch the base color, shift the hue, and tweak the saturation. Again, we're gonna shade in big shapes only. After that, we're gonna add on a darker shadow. I think the shadow we put on just now was a bit too light. We're gonna use this darker shade to define the smaller ridges, the smaller crevices. Look at that, we're already building on its form and overall shape just by adding a second shadow. Now we're gonna add our transition color, and of course, we're gonna add it beside our shadows over here. It's gonna be a transition color between the shadow and the base color, and look at that, it looks gorgeous. And of course we have to add our line art color. It's gonna be really dark just to add that additional contrast to the piece. Only 5 colors. We've managed to make our artwork look like this. It's all about knowing how to shade your forms and just adding those values on top of one another. Now for the eyes and face, I just like to keep it simple, just shadows around the eyelids, under eye, and then a nice nice blush and then a shadow below the neck, and that's it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think that's pretty much all you need to know for this video. These are just overall tips I wish I knew as a kid, because oh my gosh, it took me so long to learn all of this. So you get all of this in one video. You guys are lucky as heck. I don't really do much after the render process. Sometimes I add adjustment layers, but they don't really do much, honestly. I just do a chromatic aberration or something like that, and it's enough for me. Hope you enjoy this video and hope you learned something new. Goodbye!